Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I'll talk about conversation, the conversational principle that has been outlined by Grice. In any conversational context, this is important that the speaker and the hearer who are in the interaction, conversation with each other, they must understand each other. They must listen to each other. They must respond to each other. When the speaker says something, the hearer must respond to it. If the speaker and hearer, they are not responding to each other, there is no conversation at all. There is a conversational activity is essentially a human activity where both the speaker and the hearer cooperate with each other. They cooperate to understand each other. They cooperate to listen to each other. This is what is important. This has been given by none other than Grice, who talked about the conversational principle, which is referred to as cooperative principle. In the cooperative principle framework, we will talk about the maxims that are important there for entering into any conversation. There is also a notion of interpretation. That is, you talk to each other because there is something which is important that you should get the information. We have to have information that is to be carried out. If there is no information given, perhaps the conversation will cease to exist. So information is very important. So today, when we talk about conversational principle, the cooperative principle, basically, we'll talk about the notion of interpretation, we'll talk about the maxims of conversation, and then towards the end, we'll talk about a critique of Gricean model of cooperative principle. So we'll talk about all these details now. The conversational context that is there when the two interactants meet each other. We always try to make sense of what is said by the speaker and respond to it in an appropriate manner. This kind of interaction is what essentially conversation is. And such conversational interaction is a typical human activity. H.P. Grice's paper, Logic and Conversation, way back in 1975, is an extremely important contribution to the study of human conversation. Here, Grice provides a framework to describe conversation, which can be used to study written texts too. Interestingly, the same framework can be used for something very different, namely arriving at the non-literal meanings of utterances. The theory that Grice proposed to examine the nature of human conversation is discussed here. The cooperative principle. Grice invites attention to the fact that conversation is a cooperative activity, in that there can be no conversation if the hearer refuses to respond to the speaker. The hearer, let's call him as H, may opt out, in Grice's words, of the conversation by leaving the place or by telling speaker, let's call him as S, politely or rudely that he would not interact with him at that point of time. However, H may respond to S by being deliberately unhelpful. He may choose to give an irrelevant answer or a grossly inadequate answer to the speaker's query. But this would not be treated as a case of his being non-cooperative. So long as the H answers S, whatever be the nature of the answer, relevant or irrelevant, unambiguous and clear, ambiguous and unclear, precise or imprecise, he can be said to be cooperating with S. If the H responds at all, in whatever manner, he is engaged in the act of conversation with S. A conversation is a linguistic interaction and by definition involves participants. It is of some length and has a topic. The participants might already have something to talk about or might start talking about something when they start interacting. The topic, in other words, might have pre-existed or might emerge during the participants' exchange itself. Grice posits the cooperative principle, we call it as CP, to capture the cooperation among the participants of a conversation. When two persons are engaged in conversation, as the participants in the conversation, they observe CP. Grice believes that humans are basically rational beings, so all their interactions, including the linguistic interaction, are naturally mutually helpful. This is obviously not to say that human interaction is never negative, irrational, unreasonable, or unhelpful. In conversational contexts, people do quarrel, do misinform for their personal or their organization's benefit. But ordinarily, their interaction is helpful. If it were not so, life would have been very difficult indeed. What is the notion of information in Grice's theory? Grice, as a theorist of conversation, is concerned with information. People interact primarily because they need information. Thus, conversation is about giving or sharing of information. If S seeks some information from H, say how to go to the railway station, then H gives him that information or tells him that he does not have it. Even the second response is helpful. A response which provides incorrect or imprecise information would have been clearly unhelpful. One might ask what would count as a piece of information and what would not. From one point of view, what is not known to H is information for H, and H knows is not information for him. This is more or less how the term information is understood in day-to-day life. Thus, under normal assumptions about what people know, the dog bit the man is less informative than the man bit the dog. We know that sometimes dogs bite human beings. So this is not information. When we hear a man biting a dog, that becomes a piece of information, as we do not have this as common knowledge or information. Similarly, I saw a two-eyed man this morning is completely uninformative, whereas I saw a one-eyed man this morning is informative. It is said that once President Ronald Reagan, after introducing himself to Pele as the President of US, told the great footballer the following, and I quote, "You don't have to tell me who you are. I know you are Pele. Everybody knows you." Quote closed. That is, Pele would be saying something entirely uninformative by introducing himself. The categories and maxims of conversation. If the participants observe cooperative principle, then one would ordinarily expect them to make their contribution during the conversation precise, correct, relevant, and intelligible. Because the main purpose of conversation, as we know, is to seek or give helpful information. According to Grice's theory, there are some maxims that can be said to characterize conversation. He organizes these into different categories, namely quantity, quality, relevance, and manner. A category may have one or more maxims. There could be more categories as well and more maxims. The theory does not close this possibility. The maxims of quantity are concerned with the amount of information to be given at a certain stage during the conversation. These are as follows. 1. Make your contribution as informative as is required for the current purpose of the exchange. And 2. Do not make your contribution more informative than is required. If S gives H more information than is necessary, then S would at least be wasting H's time and without his knowing his own time too. See an example of conversation where the maxim of quantity has been violated. A. What is the price of onion in Delhi? B. Onions are expensive and the price is really unaffordable, even by the middle class. The cost rises because there is no control over the price. The government does not regulate the market before the price rise. They now cost rupees 80 per kilo. The government takes steps to solve the problem after we may pay so much for a long time. And the steps are not adequate at all. You see, the price has not come down very much. Similarly, if one provides less information than is necessary for the purpose, then that is not going to be of help either. See this example. In a job interview situation, the interviewer asks, "Please introduce yourself to the committee," and the candidate responds by saying, "I am Shivani." This is clearly a case of providing the committee much less information than necessary. Minimally, the committee would like to know about her qualification, experience, job-related interests, and the like, unless, of course, she is already very well known and she assumes that the members of the committee know her. But even then, in this specific context, she would be expected to give all those details about herself as mentioned above. It may be noted that the details which may be adequate in one may be inadequate in another. Grice does not, of course, say it in so many words, but surely he assumes that it is to be the case. Now, it is difficult to say how much is adequate contribution and how much inadequate for a participant without reference to the context of the conversation. Let's see the following instance in an informal conversation. A. How old are you? B. I am 29 years, 7 months and 23 days old. Such detail will most likely surprise H, who would consider this response odd and inappropriate in this particular context. It would be considered over-informative. To consider another example, imagine that S knew that H's mother had been hospitalized. Now, when they meet, S asks H how his mother is doing. If H simply says she is doing reasonably well and is responding to the treatment, it would ordinarily not be regarded as adequate response. It would be viewed as too cut and dry. Some more words that would show care and concern, such as how she is feeling, how long she is likely to stay in the hospital, etc., would be expected. A cut and dry answer may be viewed as indifference towards the sick, especially in certain cultures as ours. The category of quality has a super maxim and two maxims. The super maxim is as follows: try to make your contribution one that is true. And the maxims are: number one, do not say what you believe to be false, and two, do not say that for which you lack adequate evidence. In other words, the participant's contribution must be honest and true to the extent he believes it to be so. Quality is, in a sense, a very special category. It is an overriding category because those of quantity, relation, and manner operate under the assumption that this maxim is being observed. If participants know that they are not going to observe quality, there can hardly be a conversation. It is not enough that S observes the requirements of quality. For the conversation to happen, it is required that H must have no reason to doubt that S is observing the maxims of quality. Grice does not explicitly say the following, but it is quite reasonable to make this point. H cannot be certain that S is observing the quality maxims based solely on his contribution to the conversation. This is not his problem with regard to any other maxim. For example, whether S has been more or less informative than necessary is something that H can figure out from the contribution of S. But this cannot be true with respect to the maxim of quality. For example, S I often visit the President of India when I am in Delhi. Going by his assertion alone, H has no clue as to whether S is telling him the truth. For H to believe that S is observing the quality maxim, first he has to depend on his prior knowledge of S regarding his truthfulness, integrity, reliability, sense of responsibility, among other things. Secondly, H would also assess whether S would get any benefit if he tells him a lie. In conversation, listeners make assumptions about a speaker's intention behind his utterance. Sometimes listeners may be wrong in figuring out a speaker intention and might interpret a meaning that the speaker has not intended. This is an important cause of miscommunication. Providing misinformation with an intention to mislead for reasons of profit or power is not an unfamiliar phenomena today. To take a familiar example, when an automobile manufacturer company advertises its car on the television, it projects its attractiveness in terms of its low fuel consumption and good speed. Such claims are possible under the condition of road being excellent and the road being empty. However, these conditions are never mentioned in the advertisement. Thus, the information that the consumer gets about the performance of the car is of questionable quality. The first maxim of quality is violated in the advertisement if one goes by what is explicitly said and shown. To realize that information is misleading, the viewers must relate it to the reality, where roads are neither in good condition nor ever empty. They must also understand the profit-making motives of the company relevant to the advertised material. The third maxim is the relation. Grice states its single maxim, be relevant. The contribution of a participant has to be relevant in a conversation. One can take relevance to mean locally relevant. In a question-answer sequence, the answer must be relevant to the question and the continuation question must be relevant to the response given. If this requirement is not met, then a conversation would be virtually impossible. For example, the relation between the question and the answer has not been maintained here. How far is Bhubaneswar from Delhi? The British Prime Minister is visiting India soon. A is surprised. I just want to know how far Bhubaneswar is from Delhi. B. We must keep our surroundings clean. A conversation cannot continue with such irrelevant responses. The fourth category is manner. It has a super maxim. Be perspicuous, that is to speak with clarity. It has the following maxims: avoid obscurity of expression, and 2. Avoid ambiguity. Third, be brief, that is avoid being unnecessarily wrong and long and wordy. And fourth, be orderly, that is be systematic. Unlike quantity, quality and relevance, all of which relate to content of utterances, manner is about the style of expression. An exchange aiming to be helpful must be lucid and clear, requiring minimum mental effort for understanding. Clarity in conversation also means avoiding jargon, inexplicitness, excessive subtlety of expression, allusions to unfamiliar texts, and long forgotten events. Avoiding ambiguous expressions and wordy and excessive ornamental language and unorganized content also bring clarity. There cannot be a conversation if one or both the participants talk in ambiguous language or in terms of, say, riddles. Making sense of such utterances requires considerable mental effort, and these would tire the participants, irritate them, and demotivate them to remain engaged in conversation. After all, a conversation is not a puzzle-solving activity. One funny example of ambiguity I'll just give you here. Joe was in a court fighting a ticket for parking his car in a non-parking area. The judge asked him, "Do you have anything to say in your defense?" Joe replied, "They should not put up such misleading notices." The notice said, "Fine for parking here." I'm sure you understand that fine has got an ambiguity here. Other maxims. Grice observes that there could be other maxims as well, such as the politeness maxim. There are then ethical, social, and aesthetic constraints on what can be said in an exchange, which could be stated in the form of maxims. The existence of such constraints need not surprise one, because conversation is a social act. In the 1930s and 40s, in Odisha, and probably elsewhere in India, to talk about the women of the family in public was considered totally unacceptable. Similarly, saying things that sound like enjoying the misfortune of someone, even when that person is one's arch enemy, or making uncharitable comments and references about the dead, at least the recent dead, are almost taboo in many cultures, including our own. The participants' language must be polite, not sarcastic or hurtful. Polite forms of address, polite pronouns, polite forms of request, such as the question, "Would you please do X?" in place of imperative, "Do X," which degrades a request into an order, euphemisms, absence of swear words, among others, constitute polite expressions. Polite utterances basically increase the status of the other, the addressee, H, and the lower that of S in an interaction context. One is being polite when one gives choice to the other, when no choice really exists. When the manager tells his assistant, "Would you bring that file to me?" or even, "Please bring that file to me," he is not really giving him the choice not to bring the file. He is only appearing to do so. Thus, in order to be polite, the manager has increased the status of his assistant with respect to his own, and he has done so with his utterance. But Grice's theory is not free from criticism. He has often been disputed by arguing that cooperative conversation, as with most social behavior, is culturally determined. Therefore, the Gricean maxims and the cooperative principle cannot be universally applied due to intercultural differences. In Odisha, the youngsters in many Adivasi communities normally do not reply the questions asked by the elders. That is, because in many Adivasi communities, elders ask questions mostly when they are annoyed. And so answering questions by the youngsters is considered offensive in such situations. However, Harnish points out that Grice only claims his maxims hold in conversations where his cooperative principle is in effect. The Adivasi speakers choose not to be cooperative, valuing the prestige of the elders. In this module, we have talked about the principles of conversation as outlined by Grice. Grice believes that conversation is basically a cooperation between the speaker and the hearer. If there is no cooperation between the two, the conversation does not exist. The speaker wants to say something to a hearer and the hearer wants to opt out from that conversation, then the conversation has not taken place. The conversation does not get carried forward. So the conversation get sustained, the conversation to be part of the international context, it is essential that the two, speaker and the hearer, must be in the conversational interaction. Grice talks about the rules of conversation, which he has outlined as conversational cooperative principles. The cooperative principles have got certain maxims that we have talked about, the maxims of quantity, the maxims of quality, the maxims of relevance, and the maxims of manner. In addition to these maxims, we have also talked about the pragmatic aspect, that is the politeness. The politeness is very essential along with all other maxims. Grice has also discussed that there is important that you provide information to the speaker, to the hearer. If there is no information, the speaker has no desire to get the conversation carried out. These are all that we have discussed under this module. I'm sure you have been able to take it up now, and you'll look at in your day-to-day activities that at every level during the conversation, you are somehow or other taking up these maxims in your conversation. Thank you. Good luck.